To begin, I want to start with a quote. Big, long quote by Skye Jitani. And he said this when he interviewed the author back in 2021. This is when I was introduced to this book and this idea. And he had a 4-part series talking through this book. And every part he would begin with this intro. And I think it kind of gets us right to where we're at. In January 2016, a candidate known more for casinos, reality television, and multiple affairs launched his campaign for president. You could probably guess who he's talking about. To the surprise of many, he quickly became the favorite among, everybody say, white evangelicals. How could a movement that once championed the importance of character rally behind a man who seemed to embody the opposite of Jesus' humility, compassion, and integrity? How did we get here? How did we get here? I don't know about you, but when I look at the last few years of my faith, I could say God came through, yes. I could name it faithfulness and miracles, yes. But you know what one word I would use to describe it as well? Is disillusionment. Disillusionment. I, in the last few years, have seen pastors, Christian leaders that I've looked up to fail spectacularly and be exposed for doing horrible things, for being total frauds, for being abusive to the people in their care. And it's weird. It's so weird. People that you listen to. You know, it's like you hear from God through these people, and then you realize that they had all these ulterior motives. It's disillusioning. For me, I grew up in a church. When I was 5 years old, started going to this church. Actually, Derek went there before me. He went to the Awana program for a year, and then I was old enough to go. And I fell in love with this church. It shaped me. It changed my life. I imagined I'd be at this church forever. I met my wife there. We got married. I got baptized there. Got baptized with my mom. I was in 4th grade. We got baptized together. So many memories. I met so many people. I was shaped in everything in life, money, relationships, we talked about it all, faith and worship and all this, like that defined who I was in this church. I thought I'd be there forever. I became the youth pastor there. I thought maybe one day we'll do multi-sites and I'll lead one of the sites. Maybe one day I'll be the lead pastor of this church. I don't know. I'm not there today. I'm not there today. Sometimes I pray that church would close its doors, because that church some days I think is doing more harm than good. And it'd be best if it just stopped because of all the harm and some, the manipulation and abuse that has come out of that church. Disillusionment. Maybe for you, you feel disillusioned, you feel hurt by the church. Maybe for you, you know somebody and you thought the world of them, and you thought, wow, that person really loves Jesus. You looked up to them. You aspired to be like them. And today you're like, I think they look more like Fox News than they look like Jesus. They just seem angry all the time. And why are they so worked up about this and that? Where is that coming from? Maybe for you, you know somebody who has gone so left that they left the church. That's dumb. I don't know. I was saying it and I was about to stop myself, but I said it anyways. You know what I'm saying. They grew up in church. They were all about it. They were in love with Jesus. But something happened, and it's a little vague. Maybe you don't even know really what happened, but now it's like full 180. You'd never see them in church. They're so against it. Today we're talking about the white evangelical church. Maybe for you, you grew up and you weren't a white evangelical. Maybe for you, you grew up and you were a black Christian. And maybe you already knew for years that the white evangelicals had their problems. Maybe for you, you're going to hear this sermon and the entire time you're going to be thinking, yeah, I thought that was obvious. I'll tell you, this stuff came as a surprise to me. maybe you saw all these things for years and years, and you're surprised that there's so many people like me that we're seeing this stuff develop, and we're just like, where did this come from? And so the book by DeMay, Jesus and John Wayne, How White Evangelicals Corrupted a Faith and Fractured a Nation. What she does is, this is a historical book tracing the last 70 years of the evangelical movement and what happened and how we ended up, and sort of the not that this is everything, but it's symbolic, the massive support and getting behind a president who doesn't show the same character that we would have maybe expected from a president in the past, or that Jesus demonstrates. And we think, wait, this MAGA movement and all that, like, how did it become the evangelical church that adopted this and rallied around this so much? And so it's a brilliant book. I would recommend it wholeheartedly. Today, we're not going to be able to even really scratch the surface. We're going to get some big level ideas. But before we do, I want to talk about the fact that this is about the church drifting from Jesus. This is what it's about. It's, we can get political and we can talk about all these different things, but it's about being around Jesus, doing what Jesus wants us to do, living out the teachings of Jesus. It makes me think of last summer. Hannah and I, we took nephews on her side out to Lake Michigan for a beach day. And Hannah and her mom got so excited. They got this pop-up tent. They went to the dollar store. They got squirt guns. They got all these toys and stuff. Like, it was going to be a day. And, it was one of the most cold, rainy, miserable days in the summer. It was one of those on the lake. And it turned out to be a blast. It was so much fun. It was like we didn't even care. The kids were having so much fun. We got the whole tent set up, and it was perfect. And all day, what would keep happening, though? Because we don't have lakes around here. In Wisconsin, we had a lake. Here we talk about lakes, but those are ponds. Wisconsin has a real lake. And so the entire time I'm watching these kids and making sure that they don't go too far. And every 10 minutes, what are they going to do? They go off, and they're way out away from the tent. I'm like, guys, come back. And I have to go in the water. I have to, come on, this way. 10 minutes later, they're all the way over there. I'm like, what? They're not doing this on purpose. No, what happens? You guys know this if you go to the ocean, right? It's a current. See, there is such a power to the waves. And the power isn't necessarily always in the strength of the wave, but it's in the subtlety of the wave. The wave can move us away from the tent, move us away from our base, and we don't even realize is happening. What is that tent? What is that base? What does it mean to live the way Jesus taught us to live? Well, Jesus taught us to be losers, not winners. You know that, right? He said, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Do you know what denying yourself, taking your cross meant? Do you know where you take your cross? You're going to take your cross to a place where you're going to be nailed to it. Following Jesus means dying. So it says if you're going to this shouldn't be a surprise to you. That's kind of the cross is kind of everywhere. Like, if you're going to be a Christian, that means you're going to embrace death and self-denial. You're not going to fight to win all the time. What does it mean to follow what Jesus taught us to do? It means losing, not winning. It means repenting, not judging. What did Jesus say about judging? He said, how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when you've got a log in your own eye? We got to be obsessed with self-denial, self-correction. Deal with the problems in our own lives. And yet it seems like our movement has shifted, and we're known for pointing the finger at somebody else and not looking for ways that we contribute to the problem. What did Jesus teach us? He starts out, the very beginning, the first words of his most famous sermon, Sermon on the Mount, says, blessed are the poor. A movement that's become so obsessed with protecting our own rights and privileges And yet Jesus tells us that it's the poor, the meek, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, that we are called to care for the poor, to look out for the needy, the vulnerable. Jesus spent time with the people on the outskirts, the people that others wouldn't talk to, the people that others would never associate with. He's going out to dinner with them, the sinners. This is the tent, and we've drifted. So let's talk about what are those waves. So what I do is I do my very best to take all the information from the Dumais book, and she just gives so much information, so much history, and I try to categorize it into 3 different waves that have pushed us away from the tent. Here's the first wave. Our faith got drafted. So how it goes is post-World War II, we're scared of something as a nation. Who can guess what was the big fear post-World War II? Come on, nice and loud, you know it. Communism. Some of us weren't even born then and we know it, right? Communism. At church, for years and years and years, we're preaching you need to be afraid of hell. Now, we're afraid that hell's going to come to us in the form of a bomb by the communists. So our nation is wrapped around this idea that we got to do something about this massive problem of communism. And the key figure, the key evangelical figure, the guy, who was the guy at that time, post-World War II, that if you thought of the white evangelical church, even today, if you think white evangelical church, you're going to think of this guy. He died like 5 years ago. Who am I talking about? Billy Graham. I heard a couple other names I did not pick out, but Billy, the legend, Graham, the hero, the icon. I'm going to give him a little critique. Just a little. He's a good guy. I like him. I'm pro Billy. In this time, Billy was asked to see the military as a mission field. See, the problem was the communists. The problem was our military had a bad reputation. They were known for being violent, drugs, sex. They weren't the Christian ideal by any stretch of the imagination. And so how do we get a nation to get around the military and send their sons to the military if the military has such a bad reputation? So they asked Billy Graham to come in and Christianize the military. Is that a bad thing? Bringing Jesus to the military? What happens, though, if you do such a good job of bringing Christianity to the military that then what ends up happening is you bring the military to Christianity? So we start to see a faithful Christian life lived out in the fictional character of John Wayne more than Jesus. Our Christianity becomes shaped by masculine military. And we love the military. And we are so grateful to people who serve on the military. But it was a wave in our history, a little drift away. We thought that being a Christian and the best Christians represent courage, boldness, fierceness. But we forgot about patience, kindness, gentleness. That's sissy stuff. That's not Jesus stuff. No, Jesus is like John Wayne. And so our whole imagination began to shift in the white evangelical world because of that first wave. To be a Christian was to be anti-communist. To be anti-communist was to be masculine. This was the first shift. This was the first wave that pushed us away from the tent. But it gets further. So after this big height of communist fear, it begins to wane down, and a new threat emerges So we're thinking 60s, 70s. We're thinking the time of Roe v. Wade. We're thinking the time of the civil rights movement and school integration, where white evangelicals are feeling really threatened that their way of life is under attack, that their character is being questioned and called to task. And so what we do is we, through the help of a guy named Jerry Falwell Sr., we gather together a coalition called the Moral Majority, and we say what it means to live the right life and to be a Christian is these certain things that fit nicely into the Republican Party. And if we gather under this umbrella, this will be the Christian party, and together we can fight to make a Christian nation. So our faith got politicized. It first got drafted, now it got politicized. The threat was communists out there, and now the threat is the feminists, the progressives, the liberals in our own nation. Notice how we're not doing self-reflective stuff. We're doing the speck in the other person's eye kind of stuff. We're seeing the enemy as someone out there. The problem isn't about anything I'm doing. The problem is what they're doing. And so our faith gets politicized. It gets weaponized. This is the start of what we call culture wars. This is the take back our nation. We're fighting. I think the quote was, we're fighting for the soul of our country. Is that it? We're fighting for the soul of America. This is the sentiment. The stakes are high, aren't they? The soul of America. It's our kids that are on the line here. It's our nation that's on. You know they're going after our kids, right? They're going after our kids. What won't you do for your kid? I wasn't planning on saying this. I went last week. I took Ivy to the park, just me and her, daddy-daughter time. We went to Robeson. It was wonderful. It was a good time. I sang to her. I rocked her. I'm rocking a lot, by the way. So I normally can't hold still when I preach, and I think it's just going to get worse. So I apologize. I'm sorry if that's distracting. I'll try my best. Keep it planted. I'm at the park with Ivy, and I look out just a little further. There's this woman with a dog, and I can tell she doesn't have good control of that dog. And something inside of me stirred. And I started visualizing that dog going loose. Like they were way over there. And I'm like, that dog is going to get loose and come straight for my baby. And I will set her down and strangle that dog to death. Nothing's hurting my baby, something. And so if you think of that dog as the liberals, out there, going after your babies. What won't you do? Is there anything that is too far? Would you support any politician to protect your babies? It's the whataboutisms. We have gotten so far that we are willing to accept anything on our side. We don't do anything wrong because look at what they're doing. And the ends justify. That's after wave 2. We got another wave to go. What's wave 3 here? Our faith gets marketed. So now we've got it in the air that there are enemies all around us. We've got in the air that Jesus is a fighter, that Jesus is macho masculine, and there is no place for gentleness in Christianity. We've got it all there. We've got enemies out there. We've got enemies here, and we've got to fight for the soul of our nation. We've got to fight for the next generation, for our babies, for our children. We've got to fight. And now this message, this narrative, this way of being is going to get spread in sophisticated, powerful way through marketing. Here's how it goes. We realized at this time that we can make a lot of money off of Christian media. Whoa, there's a market for Christian content, music, books, anything, TV, everything, we could just Christian, this is great. But there's a problem. Because if we focus on theology in the Bible, it's too fractured. There's too many different kinds of churches. We disagree over different things. That's not going to work for us. We got to find what can we unite over. And they decided we're going to unite over things like family values and lifestyle. This is where, has anyone ever heard of James Dobson? James Dobson. So James Dobson, he capitalizes on this. He runs this company called Focus on the Family. And out of Focus on the Family, you ask Hannah, and the greatest, most creative, most interesting radio show comes out of Focus on the Family, Adventures in Odyssey. Do not speak ill of Adventures in Odyssey to Hannah. She will not listen to you. So maybe there was some good that came out of Focus on the Family, but what it did, it shifted our minds. We were already primed to think that Christianity is a mom and dad, 2.1 kids, white picket fence, and your kids are squeaky clean. No drugs, no sex, no smoking, no R-rated movies. You got this. This is the heart of what Jesus died on a cross for, was this comfortable, clean living. Is that stuff bad? No. But it's another shift. It's another shift. It's another drift, another wave, another wave. These are the things that got us here, where we look for anybody who can fight on our behalf for our way of being. What was the quote here? The values evangelicals embraced were not a betrayal of their faith, but a reflection of it. So when following a worship service, a group of people stormed the Capitol, rampaging, disrupt civil well-being, attempt to take over and violently hurt people in the name of Jesus. How did we get there? One drift at a time. We became shaped by what could sell more than the Sermon on the Mount, what could be packaged. We saw enemies around every corner, in our schools, in our sitcoms, in Congress. Enemies, enemies, enemies. You know, everything is a fight. It's exhausting. You know, when you're fighting, your brain doesn't work. It switches to a survival instinct. You're not thinking straight. If you're in a fight, the best thing you can do is take a breath. You want to think well. If you're in a fight with your spouse, you want to breathe. You want to calm yourself, regulate yourself, because you're going to say something you don't mean. You're going to do something that you didn't want to do. And the white evangelical church is in this perpetual fight. And sometimes we don't use our heads. And I say we. Some of you guys aren't white. But at least they're adjacent. Maybe you wouldn't see the white evangelical church as your direct, immediate family, but they're cousins at least of you. This is my family. This is the family that changed me. Like these are my people. I say we. I'm a part of this too. Here's how Dumais ends it. She said in an interview, she said that her publisher thought, wow, what a depressing book. And she said, I don't know what to tell you. Here it is. And the publisher said, no, you got to give something. So this is her attempt at giving some glimmer of hope. She says, if evangelicals have come to value cruelty and have replaced the Jesus of the Gospels with a vengeful warrior Christ, it is because these values have been carefully taught. Everybody say taught. If this has been done, it can be undone. Do you believe that? What if this was undone? How would our world look different? You know, the same drive to change the world, to improve our country, is actually hurting our country and damaging the world. The same drive to see things get better is really causing some harm and hurt. So what if we went back to the Sermon on the Mount? What if we went back to Jesus? You're like, well, what is Jesus? What is the 10? Oh, yeah, Jesus, who taught us to lose and not win, who taught us to repent before we judge, who taught us to look out for those in need instead of looking always at our own interests. What if we did that? You know what's cool about that? Here's the hope in all that. It's because you think of this problem, we think this is a big national problem. I can do nothing about it. I'm just one person. And yet Jesus gives us the Sermon on the Mount as a picture of this is how the kingdom of heaven invades the earth. It's through the poor. It's through the meek. It's through the vulnerable. It's through those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. He looked at a crew of people who were not the influencers and the politicians of the day. He looked at the ordinary, the overlooked, and he said, you are the ones I'm going to use to change the world. And I'm going to do it as you treat your neighbor a little better. As you work on your anger problems, as you work on your lust problems, as you look to the inside and you start working on your heart, you know what's going to happen is the world will notice. They will see your good deeds and they will give glory to your Father in heaven. You want to see a change in our country? You want to see a change in our world? We've got to go back to the tent. We've got to see where we've drifted off and we've got to get back to what Jesus taught us to do. Would you stand with me as we pray? Father God, we ask you in this moment right here, would you show your grace in our lives? Would you convict us of sin? Would you help us, God, to stop passing the blame? From this day forward, we are going to stop looking to other people as the enemy. We're going to do what you taught us to do, Jesus. We're going to love our enemies, and we're going to work on ourselves. So even now, God, would you convict our hearts? Even now, we confess that we fail you. And the people around us we could treat a little better. And we can do a little better to bring heaven into our small world. We could do a little better to follow you, Jesus. Jesus, we say, we believe your ways are better. Jesus, we say, we trust you. We don't have to bring your kingdom on our own. We know that if we are faithful to you, Jesus, you will work. As we sang earlier, even when I don't see it, you are moving. So we invite you, move in our lives, move in our homes, move in our workplaces. We surrender to you.